Welcome to Investor Evolution Elevate, the podcast designed to help busy professional women like you rise higher in every area of life. Whether you're looking to create financial freedom, reclaim your time, or find harmony while you're thriving in your career, this show is for you. Join me each week as we uncover strategies to grow your wealth, nurture your personal development, and elevate your life to new heights so you can live with purpose, joy, and confidence. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode. I am thrilled to introduce you to our special guest today, Dr. Dan Grove. He is a critical care physician who took an unconventional path to financial independence. While still practicing medicine, Dan recognized the limits of traditional investing and boldly turned to real estate, leveraging creative financing strategies that he learned under the mentorship of Pace Morby. His journey from doctor to investor is one of determination, resilience, and vision. Today, Dan is committed to helping hardworking professionals like himself achieve better returns, greater diversification, and true independence. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Okay, yeah, no, this is exciting. I apologize in advance. There's some noise. I'm actually in the middle of doing the thing which you just described. I'm at one of the houses now, and they're installing some door locks. So that's it. Might be a little bit of background noise. I apologize.
This is perfect. This is all good because
For real.
this is life, right? This
Right.
is why we got into it. This is what happens. And I love being able to kind of peel the curtain back and see what this is like. So let's start with you as a physician. What led you to want to invest in real estate? Like, what were the motivations, the motivating factors that led you to this point?
So what I had done was when I was sort of in my training, and so I was in my training, and I had a friend who was very successful in investing in real estate, and he had gotten me involved, right? So what he did then was he helped me get into a house. This was in 2010. And in 2010, if those of you old enough to remember, you could buy, I lived in Atlanta. You could buy a house in Atlanta for $35,000 because of the financial crash and the housing crisis and all that things that happened. So he helped me by fronting the money and getting me started. But at the time I was finishing my training, I had 3 small children. I was planning on sort of transitioning. And so I wasn't prepared to deal with all the stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the property management, the people trashing the house and stuff like that. So I sort of panicked, right? And I was like, I sold them, I left. It still worked out well for me, but from that point, I was like, oh, especially when I saw what those houses are worth now in Atlanta. Anybody used to tell the Atlanta market? But I stopped looking after a point because it was just too depressing.
Right.
So I'm an intensive care doctor. So I was part of a private practice that had a contract. So we were a separate practice, but we had a contract to work in the hospital. So the hospitals gave us a contract to be the doctors in the ICU, but we did not work for the hospital. And so we had a pretty good practice. I enjoyed it. We were building other the practice had other businesses too. We had a billing company, a collections company, a sleep medicine supply company. And so I was kind of part of that. I was a junior sort of on the level, but I was still seeing this. The mindset of all the people in the group was, let's build something, right? Mm-hmm. And then right in the middle of the pandemic, when for those of you who were not ICU doctors, it was a very challenging time to be in medicine. We got a letter from the health system that we had a contract with saying that you have to become our employees, that either you work for us or you can't be in the hospitals anymore, which sort of, it kind of dropped a bomb on our practice, because even though we had these other businesses, it wasn't enough. Our main source of income was from our work in the ICU. And to lose that, we wouldn't be able to sustain it. And the only option we had, so the only option I had was to join them or to move, essentially, because find another job, another place to work. But so I really kind of didn't have a choice, Right. And so I really didn't like that feeling. I didn't like the feeling that you're fine, everything is going along, and then bam, somebody makes a decision. Like the system is not like, they're not evil, they're not bad, they're just making a financial decision that was what they felt was best for them. But now I have to then like sort of continue my career wondering, well, when's when's the next time going to happen? What if a new vice president of this or chief operating this decides, oh, we need to cut costs, so we're just going to slash salaries, we're going to make you work more hours. And it could happen at any time. So this like freaked me out because this happened like out of the blue. It was out of the blue, and it was in the middle of when we're all, getting killed in the ICU. So there wasn't even any sort of mercy. Right? They gave us 6 months. Like they didn't even give us time to sort of make plans. So I started saying, okay, well, I want to build something that I can have a second level of income that if they cut back my hours, or if they say you need to do this, or they cut my salary, it wouldn't hurt. Right. And then eventually, like, listen, I'm not one of those people that wants to quit my W-2. Like, I love my job. It's an important job. I always wanted to be a doctor. This is what I want to do. I just didn't like that at any point, right, it could all be taken or somebody else was controlling it. And I wanted to have the flexibility to make, decisions that fit for me and my family. And so that's when I started getting into this real estate thing. And I did, I think, what a lot of people do, which is go to Bigger Pockets, go to the internet, YouTube, and start learning. Now, I had enough experience. My experience in Atlanta taught me that this time you better know what you're doing, right? So I was much more sort of learn, and then do.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I got into the sort of traditional investing. And then I learned about the sub-2 mentorship, about creative finance. And that's what I've been doing since. Mm-hmm. And so now my goal is I'm just sort of trying to build, right? And what I learned is over a period of like 3 years, like I essentially got a graduate degree in this, essentially. Oh. So now I said, well, there's a lot of people out there who are in a similar position to me. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they have a different need. Maybe they just want to be sure about the retirement. Maybe you want to be sure about, I don't know, whatever they want. Like, people have all kinds of reasons for needing the freedom, but they're not as sort of hyperactive as me, and they don't want to like jump into 100 things all the time. And so they don't have the time or the knowledge. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been finding people who want to get into this sort of investment. And I have people who are looking to, like, one lady, she's just looking to learn, right? She wanted to learn about real estate but didn't know anything. So by connecting with me, we partner on a house, and then she's learning along the way. Mm-hmm. And then I have another person who he just wants to diversify his retirement. So he didn't want it all in mutual funds and exchange funds. He wanted a little bit in something else. Mm-hmm. Just to have stability, and he actually gets a higher return than he does from the stock market. And so that's sort of what I've been doing now, is trying to help find people that where we could create a 1 + 1 = much more than 2 kind of experience, and help, find the houses and work together and see how we can, if we can build this together.
There's a lot to unpack in all of that you just said. No, and it's interesting. And why I'm so grateful to have you on today is because there are so many parallels between your career and my career, and where we're at and what we're doing.
Right.
The area I've been in, I've been here for 20 years. And so I've watched this hospital complex start accumulating and acquiring all the different practices. And I've seen great things come from it, but also, the loss of freedom for the physicians. And so I could understand how that impacted you, wanting to make sure your financial future, your future is secure in your own hands, on your own terms, by your means, and that someone else can't just come in and squash it. So that resonates with a lot of us for sure. So when as you've moved into starting to invest, and I call it Pace Morby world. So as you came in to Pace Morby world, what were some of the things that got you excited? What were you wanting to work on? What did you try that didn't work out? Like, what was your journey as you started figuring out different investment types?
I like that. I think Pace Morby world would be a great amusement park, right?
I know, right?
Go up and down, right?
Perfect.
It's like Dollywood. So what am I working on? So the thing that kind of got me was I got 2 houses. I had money saved, and I had a home equity loan, and I got 2 houses in Detroit through the traditional kind of Bigger Pockets, Burr method. And I got them, and they were fine. And I realized though that I now have to wait 12 months to refinance or whatever the period is, right? And so if I do that, then I could probably do like 2 a year, 1 or 2, maybe 3, right? Which is awesome. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But I had a couple problems. One is that that's going to take a long time to get to sort of a point where it's more feasible to have that freedom. 2 is that I had to look in markets like Detroit because listen, anybody who invested in real estate in 2015 is a genius, right? Because you just rode this wave of record high appreciation and record low interest rates. So it's really, I like, it's really hard not to succeed in that because no matter what you did, it worked, right? So I always tell people it's like the stock market is the same way. With the stock market, you look the stock market, when you find the financial advisors or financial planners that did well when everything was going down or when everything was hard, that's a good planner. Whereas the guys who show good returns when everything's going up, right? So, but I joined it probably when we had sort of record high appreciation, but also very high interest rates. And so the only way to find houses that would make money is in cash flow. You had to find houses that were really cheap with high rents. You had a high, good price to rent ratio.
Right.
And so the problem is that those usually exist in markets that are challenging. Either they're low income markets or they're markets that don't appreciate very well. And so there's the 2 issues. One is that it wasn't my favorite market. These weren't my favorite kinds of houses, and it would be very slow. Mm-hmm. So that's when I heard about the idea of creative finance, which is where for similar investment amounts, or even less sometimes, now you can start opening up to more markets. You can have markets that are appreciating faster, and you can have nicer houses. And the nicer house means better appreciation, but also usually less headache, right? If you find a sort of a newer house that doesn't need as much, it's also going to need less repairs and less maintenance and stuff like that. And so that's what I got into it. And then I just started, my goal was to try to do like one of everything, right?
Okay.
So I wanted to try, because I thought that every house or every type of, like, once you do it once, it's clear how it works. Watching videos and just kind of taking notes, it's important to start. You have to get an idea, but you're never going to really learn how to do it to the point where you feel confident doing it again without actually doing it, right? That's right. Like the lady who was investing with me. This is we gave her, she gets a monthly payment and some equity. Is that now she's on all the email chains. She saw all the documents. She has now connections with property management, and she has connections with transaction coordinators, so that if she wants to do this again, she has done it on her own, but hasn't taken on all the headache and the risk. Like I had that ulcer, it's healed, and now I can, move on to my next ulcer, right?
Right. In true physician fashion, right? You see one, you do one, you teach one. So that is your model. Exactly. And I love that. Right. So you've tried a whole bunch of different investment types or asset classes. What has been your favorite, and what is your buy box, or do you still have multiple?
Well, so far the one that's been my favorite has been the acquisition. It doesn't matter to me. Seller finance is easier in many ways, but the exit strategy that's been really good, that I like the most, has been the co-living exit strategy. And so like the last 3 that I've done have been co-living houses, and those have, I think, the best potential in a high. It's really co-living is amazing for a number of reasons. For the investor, it's great because usually the revenue is higher. The total revenue.
Explain to our audience what co-living is and what that means.
Right. So co-living is like, I'm in a house right now that this is the one that we're turning over. I'm going to be a co-living. It has 6 bedrooms, and 4 of those bedrooms have their own bathroom. Perfect. Okay. So if I were to rent this house out to a family, right? A 6-bedroom house is a big house for a family, right? And so maybe I could get $2,100 a month for rent, which would mean I would probably break even on my PITI and costs. As a co-living, I can rent each room individually. And so therefore, each room then will make $700. And if you have 6 rooms, you can do the math, right? So the revenue is much higher. My expenses are higher too, right? Like I have to pay for utilities and I have to pay for fees for this house is going to use pad split. So pad split takes fees. And then I have another property manager because pad split doesn't fix the toilets and check the tenants. They just have their matching and marketing. And then you have to pay for the internet and all that stuff. So the expenses are higher, but the net is higher. So it's much better for me as an investor. It's better for tenants for a lot of reasons. One is because in a lot of these cities, the rent rates have gone up so much that if you're a single guy or girl, right, and you have a regular job, right, then you have to now find an apartment, and then you're going to have to then sublet and lease out to roommates, right? And commit to a 1-year lease in order for you to be able to afford a house to rent, even an apartment, right? Even an apartment, which a lot of times they won't let you sublease, right? And so it's not affordable. So then your only option is now you got to go to a really sketchy part of town or make major compromises. Also, when you lease an apartment, you have to commit to a year. And what if you have something which is transient? If you're not sure about what your job's going to be, like you just moved to town or you haven't gotten settled in and you started a new job, you don't know if it's going to work, right? A lot of question marks. And so it's very difficult for people in that situation to find housing. So if they're able to rent by the room, and the room is month to month, essentially, where the cost is lower, so they can get a nicer house, better neighborhood, and pay less. And the only downside is they have to share a house with other people, which most people would definitely make that compromise if that was their choice, right? And they do, right? And so it's providing a huge service to individuals. So like, for example, I have another pad split. There's the house, the house has its father. The house father, Russ, right? Russ is in his 60s. He got divorced, right? And is in this sort of transient sort of position. He's trying to figure out what he's going to do next. And so he didn't want to commit to a 1-year lease, and he couldn't afford, or it'd be too hard for him to afford a full apartment by himself. Right. So for him, it's a huge benefit. He gets his room, and then he now is the guy that calls and he'll fix this and he'll tweak that and he'll make sure everybody's taken care of. And, he's great. And then there's another lady in the house who's also an older lady. I think she's in her 60s also. And she doesn't want to live by herself. She can afford an apartment by herself, but she's nervous to live by herself. Right. So for her, it's a huge kind of comfort that there are other people around, that if she needs something, she's not alone. Right. And if you had to choose living in a part of town where it's scary, right? But now you could live in a part of town that's not as scary, and you have this feel like you don't have to feel as insecure, right? So it's a huge benefit for her. And then we have some young people who are, like I said, they're sort of between leases, between jobs, and so they don't want to commit to a full lease. So it's good for the tenants. It's great for the city, right? It's great for the city that I'm in, city of Baltimore, because there's a huge housing shortage everywhere. And it's an affordable housing shortage. So the only way to fix the affordable housing shortage is to increase supply. Because the reason there's a shortage is because there's not enough units. There's not enough places to live, right? And most of these cities have made it so difficult to build, right? There's like, in terms of the permits and all the stuff you have to go through, the people you have to bribe to get permitted, whatever it is, right? Then it's so difficult to build that the big companies that would build an apartment building, they don't want to deal with it. And so they're not coming in. And so you have this affordable housing problem where you can't build. What do? You need to increase supply without having to build. So co-living solves that problem. I take a house that would have been one family, and now instead it'll have 6 single people. So now that's 6 units that are no longer needed of whatever studio or 1-bedroom apartments, now that it's okay. So it'll decrease the demand, which will lower the cost of living for everyone else, right? So it's like everybody wins.
Right. I love the way you explain it because it's a very diverse group of people that you can serve with that. I talked to another physician and she was in a co-living situation when she was in med school. And so
Right.
she loves it because it helped her through that situation. So this is good for students, this is good for divorces, single people, people just trying to get back on their feet. Like there's so many people that you can serve with this strategy and very beneficial in so many ways that you explained. So thank you for that. So let's talk about creative finance. Creative finance can be kind of an interesting subject and there's a lot of nuances, but explain how that helps people get into real estate, especially in a current market where interest rates are high, prices are coming down, those profit margins are maybe not looking as good. How does that help?
Oh, it helps in so many ways. So let's say you're a doctor, nurse, PA, NP, whatever, and you have saved up, I don't know, like $50,000, let's say, right? And so what you would have to do is you'd have to go to a bank and then you'd have to get approved for an investment mortgage, like a second mortgage for an investment. You would then have to go find an agent or start searching for the properties. That agent, and then you have to then do essentially for the bank, by the way, to get approved, you need to do the whole financial colonoscopy, right? And so you have to tell them, like, you have to know every house you ever lived in your life and the
Mhm.
address and whatever. And then now you have to find the house, and then you have to deal with the whole sort of back and forth with the seller. And usually the houses are more expensive. So now if you have $50,000, then you can buy a house that's worth, because that's 20% down, right? So you can buy a $250,000 house. So you can buy a house for $250,000. Now, if you've been doing any market research, a $250,000 house will buy you, either you're in a rural area or you're going to be in an urban area that's sketchy, right? And you've sunk $50,000 in the deal. Okay, so and then you can only do that once, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's say you want to buy a house like the other house I did, right? So the last house I did was a subject to. So the story was Al was his name, the seller. Al um, has a fiance, and apparently the fiance wanted a certain type of wedding, right? And that certain type of wedding required a heavy duty expense.
Mm.
Okay. So Al, being the devoted fiance, needed the money. So but he didn't want to he couldn't spend 2 or 3 months on the market negotiating, hoping that he gets the price. So what he did was he actually was contacted by a wholesaler. So a wholesaler is somebody who will like sort of lock up the deal and then sell it to someone else, which in this case was me. Like just the way, Walmart buys the stuff in China and then sells it to you at a markup. So the wholesaler gets it under contract and sells it at a markup. So, and if this house, I think it's worth about like 350, right? So if I wanted to buy this house as a investor, I'd have to come up with $70,000 as a down payment and get a loan from a bank, financial colonoscopy, probably the financial EGD also, and then with the whole thing. They'll probably go top to bottom, and then make it work. So now, but what he did instead was this: is that he actually didn't really have much equity on the house because he had gotten it relatively recently. So it was nice. He had gotten it, fixed it up, and had rented it out for about a year and a half. Didn't have enough equity, but it had a little bit. And he would have had to pay seller commissions too, right? He would have pay 6%. So instead, what he did is he agrees to a subject to deal, which means he will sell me the house, which means the deed gets transferred. I own the house, but it's subject to the existing mortgage. That's why, if you ever heard sub two, that's where it comes from. The sale is subject to the existing mortgage, right? And classic lawyer speak, they make it confusing, right? So then you have to pay another lawyer to explain it to you, right? Okay, so that's where sub two comes from, right? Subject to. That's why I guess that's how Pace Morby came up with the name for his mentorship, sub two, because it's subject to. So that means that the deed gets transferred, but now I'm responsible for the original mortgage. So the mortgage stays in his name, but I'm making a payment every month. It's on auto pay.
Mhm.
And so we gave him, I think we gave him $30,000, right? And then it cost us about $8,000 to make it okay for co-living. And then, so I think my all investment was about $40,000, 45,000, maybe with closing costs.
Mhm.
Um, so instead of paying $75,000, it was $45,000. It benefits him because he got actually more than he would have gotten at sale after you take away commissions. It happened faster. We got it done, I think, in like 3 weeks instead of 2 or 3 months plus delays. Plus, you never know if the buyer's going to back out last minute or if their mortgage is not going to get approved, whatever. And then we can take that house now, and I'm paying it every month. I have the deeds, my house, and then I fix it up, and now it's going to be a co-living. It's already co-living. It filled up in like 6 weeks.
Nice. Perfect.
Yeah. So that's the advantage of a sub two. And there's a lot of reasons why somebody would want to sell sub two. So he's the example is he needs the money, and it actually benefits him. He gets more out of it than he would have otherwise. And he gets it done faster. Or some people are desperate. Like sometimes people are behind on their payments and they're going to get foreclosed on. I saved one family from foreclosure with a sub two. And so it's a lot of reasons why somebody would do it. It happens all the time for people in our profession who usually have never had a hard time getting a mortgage. It's like people like this crazy thing.
Right.
But people have been doing it since the beginning of buying houses. I guess, I don't know, some like whatever, Tuk sold his cave to Nuck and he probably used seller finance. I don't know what they did, right? But it's been going on forever.
I love it. Awesome. And I love that everything that you're doing, you can see this through line of how you're helping others, right? You're helping others with the co-living. You're helping that seller get what he needed so he could have that beautiful wedding for that new bride. You're helping investors because I assume they're coming along with you. You may be bringing money to the table, but you may be partnering with an investor to come in. So let's talk about that. Like, what are the types of investors that you're looking for? Who is your ideal investor avatar to come along with you on this journey?
So yeah, it depends. There's not an ideal bet. The only thing is that somebody obviously has to have the capital, but the nice thing about the way these things can be done is we can be creative about that also. So it depends on what the individual wants, right? Some people are like, just take my money, give me my monthly check. I don't care. Fine. You can work out something for that too. Some people are, I want to be 100% involved. I want equity in the house, and we could structure it that way also. And some people can be in between, or some people want more information. Some people want less, right? Like some people want to be constantly updated. Fine. Some people, just like I said, just as long as the check goes, they just see the check deposited and everything's fine. Right. And so it really depends on, but I think the ideal, like the type of investor I think of is like me, right? I think of me 5 years ago, right? Where it's like, I'm investing, like I have money saving for retirement. I don't live extravagantly. So I always spend less than I make. So I was saving for other things. And then, so maybe somebody wants to take that extra savings and do something other than exchange fund. Some people, I actually have somebody who invested with a self-directed IRA, which is really cool, right? You can actually take your own retirement money. You can't do this with like a 401k or 403b, but you can make an IRA. And then what you do is you then can direct that IRA into any investment you want. You could buy baseball cards if you wanted. Like, it just has to be that you set it up correctly. So I actually did this, right? I had an IRA that didn't have that much money, but I wanted to see what it was all about. Like again, try everything, right? And so I had this money, and what I did is I found there's companies that act as a custodian, right? Because the key is you have to make sure that everything's kosher with the IRS, right? That you're not benefiting from this money. Okay. You can't like take this money and, use it to buy yourself something, because then you'll get penalized. So there's the custodians, and what they do is they will take that money and they will transfer it into their account that they set up. Right. And then you just have to fill out a form, give them the wiring instructions, and you can then invest in a house with me. You can invest in a multifamily deal, as a syndicate. Like I said, you could buy baseball cards, or I don't know, like whatever people are investing in these days. Like whatever you want, you can buy Bitcoin. You could buy just gold. I don't know. People were into Beanie Babies when I was a kid. That was a thing in the 90s. That was a big deal, right? I don't know. They don't
I don't think that would be a good investment these days.
No, I wouldn't like, by the way, it doesn't have to be a good investment. It just has to not be something that you directly, like, for example, if you invest in an Airbnb, you can't go there for free.
Right.
Right. You have to be careful that stuff like that. But as long as it's and usually the companies that you do this with, they know all the rules and they make sure. And by them being involved, you're good. You don't have to worry about the IRS. And it's a pretty cool thing to do if you have that extra money set aside, because like most people can't do anything with it anyways in a while. Mm-hmm. The amount of money that you can make in these real estate investments is much higher than you would make in just a mutual fund. And then it's nice, again, to be diversified, right? If you have your 401k and stocks and bonds, it's good to have something else so that if you get close to retirement, the stock market crashes, you have another kind of thing to buffer that if there's a problem. Yeah. Yeah. So back to what you're saying, I can talk about this. So,
no, it's all good.
What's the ideal investor? Somebody who has that kind of income, right? That wants to put it in something. Like I don't think it's good. I'm not looking for people who are looking to quit their jobs and then just be real estate moguls. And I'm not looking for people who this is money they need to live on. I don't think that's a good idea. Like that doesn't make me feel good. But it's like somebody who has extra money in savings and they want to put it in something to diversify, to get more returns, or for whatever goals they have.
Well, and I mean, this is an investment. There are risks involved. Just as if you invest in the stock market, it's possible to lose money. That can happen in real estate also. So this is not something to be entered into lightly, or just because we said, hey, you should do this. Right. Don't do that. You do your own research.
The YouTube video, the guy was flying a private jet. It's got to be, right? That's what it said on the YouTube video. He's flying a private jet. He said you can't lose, right?
Right. Yeah, don't do that. So let's talk about, because we've kind of danced around it a little bit, the difference between a private money partner or a PMP and a private money lender or a PML. What are the differences? I assume you work with both, and tell us those nuances.
Yeah, so a private money lender is like a bank, right? It means that they give you money. Usually, like the thing that we've done is like they need the money. That's the money for the repairs and the initial payment to the seller and the closing costs and all the money you need to get going. And then every month you pay them whatever the rate and the term is. So they get a monthly check every month, sort of no matter what, right? So like if I have a PML, I got to figure out how to pay them out of my own pocket if I have to, right? And that usually PML is secured against the house. So they have a lien on the house in case something terrible happens. And that's a private money lender. They don't usually have they don't have any really say about what happens with the investment. They're not going to tell me where to put a room here and what to do with this and what exit strategy. They're just saying they will do vetting. They should do vetting to make sure that, it's a good deal, and they have to check me out. But they won't do anything like that. And they get their monthly payment, usually at a set interest rate. Mm-hmm. A private money partner is a partner, right? So they usually will get, so there's a lot, again, there's a million ways to do this. Some people will get an interest rate that's lower than a private money lender. So they'll get a lower interest rate, so a lower monthly payment, but they'll get equity in the house. Mm-hmm. They'll get a stake in the house, so that they're getting less per month in the cash, but the equity of the house is building, so that when the house sells or whenever in the future, they get, whatever, the house increases by 200,000, they'll get 10, 15, 20% of that 200,000. And then some people will do a pure 50-50 equity deal, which is we both own the house, mm-hmm. right? And so we're in this together. It's a marriage, and it's actually, you think that it's like more commitment than a marriage, but I guess most marriages last about 7 years. So it's about a marriage. It's your typical marriage, right? Right.
Very much.
Right. So, and those ones usually in the equity deals, the private money partners, then it's like, for me, when I have a private money partner, it's like, she's mostly deferring to me, but we're in this together. Like we meet, okay, this is the plans. What do you think of this? Do you agree? We have this problem. We need to raise this money. like we're working on this together. Both people need to be approved, and I can't pay off like a PML. I can pay off the balance, and then they're gone. A PMP, I have to pay off the equity, so I have to buy them out, or we have to sell, and they have to get paid off. It's more because it's like more of a sort of a partnership, right? And the advantage of each, the PML usually gets, there's a couple of advantages and disadvantages. The PML has the advantage of they're more likely to get paid if things go bad. They usually get a higher sort of amount of money every month. They get their money every month. Downside is that they don't get the real wealth in real estate is with time and equity, right? It's like I looked at it, like if you look at the cash flow, it's usually, a PML will get 10%, 12%, 8%, whatever it is like that they agree on. But an equity deal like that, equity increases over a 10-year period a lot. It could increase a lot, right? When you add in, the house could be double in value, and it could be $100,000s, and it ends up being, 500-600% on the initial investment. So there's the advantage. So the advantage of PML is it's more sort of guaranteed. It's also passive, like you don't have to do anything. The advantage of PMP is you get the equity, which is usually, if you're patient, right? Patience is important, right? Patience is important. So the equity builds with time. You get much more money in the back end. So like for people with self-directed IRAs, this is perfect because you don't need the money anyways. Like, so just let it sit. You're happy. All the money that you get from the cash flow anyways is going to get put back in your account, right? So you can it's better. Like you almost want only equity, just let it build, and like, you don't need the money. And so that's an advantage. You usually make more in the long run. And you can also, the gains, the money that you make, you can offset by depreciation because you have some equity. So there's tax benefits to it that you can get if you don't have it in the IRA, right? If you just get it straight with your money, the money that you get, there's ways for you to offset the taxes, like lots of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And it depends on like your source of capital, as you said, right? If your source of capital is coming from a HELOC, you are not lending that for 7 years, but you will not make money, right? But if you're lending it from your IRA, beautiful. And then you don't have to move it, right? You make money when you move money. And if you're not having to move it through different sources and it's still accumulating, it's working for you, it's a beautiful situation. And I know a lot of PMLs who do both, right? They have their short-term capital that they're deploying, and then they have their long-term capital, and they have different strategies based on the different amount of money or different sources of capital.
Right.
Where are you investing? Are there certain markets that you're investing in? Are you kind of over the country, or are you in certain areas?
When I started out, I didn't pick a market. That's another nice thing about creative finance. You can be more flexible. And so what I've done is I've tried to find different markets and get houses, and then in the market I develop relationships. And so the relationships, then you have a good property manager in that market. Now that's the market. So like I feel confident in Detroit, and I feel confident in Baltimore, and I feel confident in Denver where I have houses. And so that's kind of the way I do it. Once you have had a house and you feel like the team, then that's where I'll go. But I feel pretty comfortable setting up those teams because I've done it in these other places and kind of know, having learned a lot the hard way, how to like the questions to ask and what to look for and stuff like that.
Yeah, good. Let's switch a little bit from the real estate side of things to more of our mindset side of things. You're a busy guy. Yeah, I mean, you have a full-time job, you have a family, you've got 3 kiddos. Like, how have you pushed this into your life, and how are you managing that? How are you using time management skills to allow yourself the time and hopefully freedom? Hopefully you're gaining that to get all this stuff done.
Right. Yeah. So for me, it's a little bit easier for me because I hate having nothing to do. Right.
Yeah. Sure.
I like being busy. I love being busy. For me, those like the vacations on the beach, I could do that for maybe 2 hours, lying on the beach.
Okay.
And then it's like, I want to go for like go run or do something, like let's go walk around. I don't sit still very well.
Gotcha.
And so being busy is good for me. I like having things to do, but I think that it's important to, I try to choose what to do and to focus. And so I think if probably most people did a little like journal every day and they kind of just tracked all the things they do and for how many minutes over the whole course of one day, I think you'd probably realize that there's a lot of time in the day where you could find. So I don't have, like, I don't scroll on things. I don't scroll on social media. I don't have a television because I don't get sucked into that. Like, I guess you could watch stuff on the phone every once in a while. So cutting those things out probably for most people would give them 2 or 3 hours a day. Right?
If not more.
Right. I'm not a foodie, right? So I don't spend a lot of time cooking, right? I'll eat a bowl of cereal and I'm fine with that, right? And so I think just that, like, and then what I do during the day is so if I'm working in the hospital and there's a slow period, that's 15 minutes that I could do something, right? Whatever it is, there's a lot of things that you can do, right? And so if you have a day off, like, I'd rather just do stuff and sleep, get a little less sleep is fine. I don't sleep 11 hours on the weekend, and right. And so, and then multitasking, meaning if I can talk on the phone when I'm driving home from work, well, that's 20 minutes, where, I can, make a difference that way. And so that's kind of the way I find those things.
So little pockets of time that you're taking.
Exactly.
Awesome. I love it. And have you found that with your days of working versus your days off and in investing, that you're better able to get in the flow because you're like, okay, this is the time this is what I'm doing, and you can get into it a little bit better. And then vice versa, when you're at work, that's flow that you got to do. Or do you feel like it's a multitasking both sides?
No, I don't. I take that back. When I say multitasking, it's like I'm driving. I don't believe in multitasking, actual multitasking.
Okay.
Like, I think it's much better that I should take whatever, a half hour and do something like straight.
Yes.
And take an hour and do 2 things, which I probably wouldn't do as well either way. I think that's pretty clear. I think that's not effective.
Yeah, for sure.
So I do try, like, I think it's important. And I know I also do sleep medicine. So I know my circadian cycle very well. And if I can have between like 9 a.m. and noon, right, I could get a ton done if I don't have distractions, right? If I go to the Starbucks and just like hunker down, right? And so, so I think that's kind of what I do. So focusing when you're focused, so doing a lot of things, but never doing more than one thing at a time.
Good.
That's something silly, right? You can do some things at the same, you know what I mean?
Sure. And I agree with you. Like driving, I'm listening to something. I'm a podcast or a book or something. When do you find that, especially now, like you're in the flow, you've learned a ton of stuff, you've accumulated all that knowledge, you're putting it into practice. Do you find now that you're working less but getting more done because you found that efficiency?
I think I'm working the same and getting more done. But that's because I like it. It's not because I have to, you know what I mean? Because I like it. So I don't mind doing this stuff, right? I'd rather have something to do. Yeah. I don't think I'll ever retire.
It doesn't sound like it.
It doesn't. I don't know. I don't like people that sounds pleasing, like appealing to people. So like, what do? Like, you just stop working, and then when you move to Florida and wait to die. That's what I understand about retirement, right?
Yeah.
Let's just find a different career or a different thing or a different whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe I won't. Maybe you do it less hours in the day, right? And you do it if you want to, and you take days off to see the grandkids when you want to, but you're always doing something.
We had a little
Yeah.
laptop battery die, so we're on a phone and
Yeah.
we're going to finish it out. No worries. I was telling Dan, it actually gave me a chance to reformulate this question in a little bit better way and tell you a little bit more what I was thinking. So I just
Right.
started listening to a book called 10x is Easier Than 2x by Dan Sullivan
Right.
and Benjamin Hardy. And the premise is that what got you here won't get you there, and you have to change your thinking. And one of the things they talk about is as you 10x your vision, your goals, and everything, you'll gain time back in order to pursue different goals and pursue different passions, maybe different purposes. And so I wonder if you feel like that will continue in medicine, and obviously, we don't have a crystal ball. Who knows what the future may hold, but where do you feel like that could lead you with being able to pursue a passion that's maybe more than what you're doing now or in addition to?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that what I love is that I can just come up with some crazy idea and then go try to do it. But like I got into research at the hospital just recently, right? And so, you know, be able to just do stuff like that. I have a list of things that I would want to do that if I had sort of more money, I could do. So that's probably what it would be just get this running, right? And then transition to, something else. You know what I mean? And then just get from there,
Right. And I think there's always our next level. We all have that next level that we're looking to achieve. We never stop growing. We shouldn't ever stop growing. And I agree with you. I feel like some people just are waiting for the end, and that I don't want to do that either. So I'm
Right.
looking
Or they're also just looking forward to the end. Like they don't live for like what they're doing now. That's just,
right.
oh, everything will be great once I retire, once I do X, Y, and Z. And I think that's a recipe for disaster, because when you get there, if it's not what you thought it was going to be, because most of the things that we anticipate in the future are not what we thought they're going to be, either both for
Right.
good and for bad. They're usually never as great as we think they're going to be, and they're never as bad as we think they're going to be. So,
Right. I mean, I think that's a huge point, right? Of, when I get there, then I will. No, if you're not doing it now, you probably won't do it then. So the things
right,
that you want to be doing now, put them into place now so you can enjoy them as you're going. I totally agree with that
right.
100%. Dan, this has been amazing. I am just so grateful for you, for your perspective.
Yeah.
Tell us where we can find you for those who are like, I like this guy. I want to learn more. How do I invest with him? Where can we find you?
So I have a website called grovefamilyinvestments.com.
Okay,
And
beautiful.
on that site, I have like just some blog posts, like explaining some of these things, like creative finance and stuff like that. And then, it has the links to all the social medias.
Beautiful. Okay.
I post things on YouTube, and I post things on Instagram and stuff like that. I had to
Okay,
learn all this
so
stuff when I got into real estate. I'm a pre-internet child, right?
all good.
The
Same.
best thing about being my age is that you did all your embarrassing things before the internet. So those pictures are not on a Chinese server farm, so they will never be found.
That's right. That's right. All right. So everyone go find him at Grow Family Investments. You can check him out. He's got a lot of information on that site. You can see some of his projects. You can link to his socials. Dan, thank you so much. And we will have you back because this was great. And maybe we'll talk a little more mindset, because I think we can go deep on that.
Yeah, especially when I have like the background set up and I can be in my actual house, in my office, where, it's a little less, like you said, but this is multitasking, right? I'm sitting in the house.
This is live.
They're putting them in locks. I have nothing to do. I'm not going to waste this time. Let's get stuff done.
Exactly. Dan, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you. And everyone, till next time, have a good one.
All right, take care.